Hi there. It's taken me, as usual, a long time to put this video together, but I want to finish this series because it's a really good record for me, and everyone else has been kind enough to follow along with me on this trip. I've probably got this one and one more to go. So let's get started. From Dieppe, I arrived in England, and I made my way to the historic town of Rochester. The town was positioned near the confluence of the River Medway and the River Thames, and it's part of the main route of connecting London with the European continent. For some reason, known only to the universe, I didn't take any photos of the streetscape of Rochester. Except for this one of the bridge over the River Medway. So I've pinched one off the town cathedral website, and this lovely picture of the cathedral, which was built during the medieval period, and was sort of at the centre of the old historical town. While I was there, I did manage to jag the last night of an exhibition in the cathedral, which was called Mars, War and Peace. And the art installation was this sculpture that measures 7 metres across. The surface of the sphere shows imagery of the Martian surface from NASA's reconnaissance orbiter at an approximate scale of 1 to 1 million, which means that for every centimetre on the sculpture's surface, it represents 10 kilometres on the surface of Mars. So that was pretty cool. But the real reason I came here was because Rochester is the home of the Huguenot Museum. Rochester itself wasn't a primary destination for the Huguenot refugees when they first arrived in England, although it is entirely conceivable that it may and probably was somewhat of a thoroughfare. Most Huguenots settled in areas like London and Canterbury, where there were established communities there already, which meant opportunities for work, particularly in industries like silk weaving and craftsmanship. Rochester did later become more significant due to the relocation of the French hospital, which was called La Providence in the 1950s. The French hospital relocated from London primarily to provide a quieter and more affordable environment for its residents. The French hospital, despite its name, it's actually not a hospital. It's more like a retirement home / nursing home, perhaps. Its mission has always been to offer sheltered accommodation to Huguenots. These days, obviously, people of Huguenot descent. So the Huguenot Museum in Rochester, it's the only one in England, and it allowed me to get more of a feel for what the refugees faced when they arrived. It also gives me some visualization or a visual representation of the detail that you need to create when you're building a world that's so different from my world. So for example, it gave me information on how they travelled, what clothes they wore. When I saw this schoolgirl uniform with a sign saying "Try me on," well, why not? It also gave me a better understanding of some of the skills that the Huguenots brought to England with them. And this is really important in their story because it made the difference of whether they were welcomed to England or not. Many of the Huguenots were wealthy, successful businessmen and women, highly skilled in their respective crafts and literate in French, and some of them literate in other languages as well. They had really highly developed business, social and family networks. And they also brought professional skills in finance, insurance, medicine, and military strategy as well. I was particularly interested in some of the examples of timber work, now that I know that my ancestor Pierre was trained in France as a carpenter. And there was some really beautiful work on display that maybe he may have been producing something similar when he arrived in England. There was also a special temporary exhibition, which was this incredible doll's house. The doll's house was owned by a girl named Sarah Latwillier, and she was the teenage daughter of Christopher Latwillier, who was a director of the Bank of England. The example is designed in the style of the 16th century Italian architect Andrea Palladio, and you can see the statues of the Roman gods on the pediment at the top, and the family coat of arms on the facade, and also engraved on the silver sconces, which are those wall candles in the drawing room. And the footmen are also dressed in the family livery. So dolls' houses actually, I found out, originated in Nuremberg in Germany in the 17th century, and it was a European tradition for wealthy girls to be given them as gifts, and they would use them to teach them how to manage a household. So she would have understood the duties of the footman, the housekeeper, the cook, and the nursery maid, and she would have learned what each staff member's dress said about their position and their status, how to keep a room warm without damaging the valuable textiles and furnishings, because of course there's naked flames everywhere. This exhibition actually was the first time in 250 years that the doll's house has been shown outside of what is still their family home in West Sussex. So it was really not what I was there for, but it was actually really interesting. So from Rochester, I went west again towards London, and then overshot London and continued on to the little town of Whitchurch. Because I had visited the tapestry factory in France, I was interested to see if I could find a silk weaving factory, just so that I could make a bit of a comparison of the weaving techniques. So I'm in the little town of Whitchurch, and the reason I've come here is because there's an operating silk mill here. So I'm just going to wander down and have a look at that. Whitchurch is this tiny little town on the banks of a river called the River Test, and much of the area is actually a conservation area, and it was super pretty.
The design here is all based around the number of spokes on this frame. Really, there are 504 spokes on its frame. It's called a creel because it's like an upturned boat. And on each spoke you can put a bobbin. And then what they do is thread all of the threads of all of the bobbins through those three, they're like combs, they're called reeds. Big one on the end of the creel, and then two more, and then tie the whole bunch onto the walking drum, which is that kind of contraption in the corner like a cot. Once you've got the correct width, you then have to take it off and put it on to a beam. A beam is this, which is what will go on the loom. So they'll have, now this loom isn't as wide as we could produce. A full width would be over 10,000 threads, So you have to then thread through each of these for 10,000. 4 times at least, maybe 8, depending on how fancy your pattern. And then through another reed, which is very, very fun from up here, because it's very noisy. You can feel the vibration if you're on the middle side. This is a shuttle, so this is what they use to do the wefting. And this is called a pern, and you can wind several of these because this will only last a few minutes. I don't know, it depends how much you can put on it, but I would hazard to guess it's something like 15 minutes worth. So what they do, I'm going to press that, but they would, with a hand loom, press the pedal, and there's one downstairs you can have a little play with, and the pedal would lift up like that, and then you would pass the shuttle through, and this gap here, it's called a shed, the gap. So this is a shed, so it would go through there and out the other side, and then you would lift up press a different pedal, and it would lift up at the opposite, all the opposite threads perhaps, and then lift up the other side, come back again. Each time you pass the shuttle through, you would bring back the reed here and make it nice and tight. So that's how you do it.
Yeah, you think, I suppose we've downscaled too greatly, but it's now longer less.